upon Mr. Rahul Gouraha for the next ISF talk. The stage is yours, sir.
Can I request all the students who are all sitting in the back benches, can you all come to the lot of chairs are here. Can you all come? Come to the front. Hello. If you are in the back benches, you'll be, you'll not have future. Come to the front. Come to the front. Occupy a lot of chairs are empty here. Please come. There also, that corner. Get up. There are a lot of chairs here. Come and occupy them. Some more. This works. Come towards the front chairs. Where? How do I change it? No, where is it? Projector. No, I'm not. Thank you. This is for which way? Rahul, go ahead. Yeah. As long as working? As soon as I can. Yeah, correct. Yeah, changed.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, guys. Yeah, that's great to hear all of you. So my name is Rahul Gouraha and I'm here to talk about the opportunities for startups in this space of agri and food sector. So last 2 decades I have been in this space. I've been in 2 different businesses in foods and then in agriculture. And last 3 years I have been building ITC Mars, which is a digital platform which is transforming our agri business. And as a part of ITC Mars, I have closely interacted with 50 odd startups over this last 3 years or so. So I can say with a lot of confidence that for anybody trying to build something new in this space of agri and food, there has never been a better time to do it than now. And why is that, right? So we all know that this space of agri and food in India is a big space, right? It's almost $1 trillion in size, right? And this big space today is, there are 4 big forces at play in this space, and there is an unprecedented change happening in each of these 4 today. And these, so to say, the stars are aligning for that opportunity to build something big and great, right? So moving on, the first one is the nature of the consumer preference around food is changing, right? Almost the entire first half was around something on this theme, which was around health and wellness, right? So from something which is a basic hunger management, what the consumers want from food is changing. They want health and wellness, right? It could be around food safe, organic, residue-free and so on, or shifts in diet, right? Could be sugar, gluten, carb-free, or enriched in protein, fiber and so on. So there is a change towards health and wellness, right? But the consumers are not just changing on what they want from food, right? But they also want it to be produced in a sustainable manner, sourced in a responsible manner, processed in an intelligent manner, right? So that piece is also changing. And finally, they want it with convenience, right? They want multiple things right at their doorstep now, right? So each of these 3 trends at some level are around value addition and differentiation, right? And this in my mind is a lifeblood for any new entrepreneur or any new business, right? So there is that opportunity of value addition and differentiation that is emerging. Now talking about the supply side, right? It's a slightly different context, right? And this is a space where there are headwinds, right? As our population is growing, the calorie requirement that the growing population needs is also growing, right? So the basic food grains to meet that calorie requirement, the nature of productivity improvement that is needed is at least 30 to 40% improvement, right? That is what is needed even to meet the basic calorie requirement growth that is going to happen. But actually what is happening is because of climate change, we are seeing a 10 to 20% drop in productivity. That is the forecast, right? So if you marry these two together, it's a perfect storm. Second is, if you see agriculture as it stands today, itself is very resource intensive, right? Agri today consumes almost 80% of the fresh water that is available in the country. It uses up more than half of the land that is available in the country, almost half of the workforce which is there in the country. So this very high level of resource intensity is not sustainable also. And finally, which is also very important, right? That who is the producer in this whole setup on the supply side, right? The farmer. If you see over the last 2 decades, as the economy has improved, right, what has happened is that a lot of people have moved out of basic poverty, right? So you see that this piece has fattened, right? But we still have almost 130, 140 households which are poor. And the composition of this is still very agrarian. Maybe. So essentially what you can see is that whilst the larger part of India there is a growth in consumption, this set of people, the farmers, the agrarian community, they are today exposed to all the channels and avenues of consumption, but the means to consume is still not there, right? So it's a sad thing today, but reality is no farmer today wants his or her daughter to become a farmer, right? So that is this gap between, while the farm incomes have grown, but there is a growing mismatch between incomes and these aspirations. Technology is an element, and we've been hearing about it again since morning, right? It's been a force which is a disruptive force across sectors in India for the last decade or so. But this area of agri and food has been a little slow to adopt. But what has happened is post-COVID, there has been literally a phase change in the penetration, the adoption, and also the maturity of technologies that are now in a position to create impact, right? First one, we all know, right? This affordable computer in the hands of every farmer. What it essentially does is, in agri, there is so much of diversity that there is nothing called a best practice. There is only a right practice, a practice which is right for the farmer, and that condition at that point of time, right? So what is now possible is to be able to personalize solutions for the farmers. The second big piece, or the second big challenge that was always there in the space of agri was around this information asymmetry, right? So information asymmetry is, for a farmer, both spatial and temporal, right? Where do I sell? Which is the best place to sell? Is a spatial. And when do I sell? What do I sow so that 6 months down the line when I harvest, I get a good realization, right? So this spatial and temporal arbitrage is what is getting solved. The second piece is what we keep hearing, that a fundamental problem for farmers and this whole space of agri is the land holdings are small. But what is becoming possible through agri, through this tech, is that this aggregation or collectivization of farmers through platforms. And what it essentially does is that it allows this aggregation of supply and demand. And this aggregation of supply and demand enables farmers to access markets directly, enables them to access finance, which is formal in nature. And the final piece is that there are also a lot of advances in agri itself, right? Not just the digital, but in the basic agri itself, there are a lot of advances happening, whether it is seeds which are climate resistant, whether it is, delivery mechanisms which are very targeted to spray the affected plant at the right time and so on, drones and so many of them, right? So these three pieces at very broad buckets are where tech is now emerging as a potential game changer. And the final piece, right? In this whole space of food and agri, government is a very important stakeholder, right? And this list on the left is just the things that have happened in last 100 days, by Ministry of Food and Agri. So the speed and the scale at which government also is working, because it's an important stakeholder, it realizes that agri as a space, what is the relevance in terms of employment, economy and also equity, right? So that they are cognizant of. And I think as a sector, there's never been a more conducive time from a policy perspective than now, right? So these are, so essentially the confluence of these four forces I talked about. Sure. Yeah, sure. So these four spaces are what are enabling, the opportunities to emerge. Now, when we talk about what are those opportunities, see, this is a good canvas to lay out the opportunities. Now, anybody who knows this space of agri knows there can't be one single value chain, right? Value chain for wheat going up to artificial be very different. Value chain for a potato going up to a packet of wafers is different, right? So this is an indicative canvas, but essentially the nodes in the value chain remain the same in agri, right? That you have a farmer who's selling something and he has the costs which give him his net income, and then there is trade in between. There is a cost of credit. This sector, while the margins are very low, incidentally has the highest cost of credit. And then there is a primary and secondary processing and then transportation to reach the hands of the consumer. So this is a good, you can say, a canvas to kind of lay out what are the opportunities that are there. We once listed out, what could be the typical problem statements for startups to work on in this space, right? And our list crossed 100, right? So if we were to kind of bucket what are the broad areas or what are the broad kind of problems and opportunities in this space. Okay. So essentially we have three broad buckets, right? One bucket is which is around the farm and farmer and that catchment. And what can be done to bring efficiency there, enhance incomes for farmers, right? It could be around something as basic as farm mechanization. But how really 1/10 or 1/50th the typical farm size, right? So many of the solutions on mechanization are designed for large farms. But how do you have mechanization for Indian farms which are small, cost effective? Biofuels is a big space which is there at a farmer level. And then moving on. And these are the other two buckets which are essentially there, right? That where you can have opportunities around. So, final piece before I end, what I would like to lay is that in agri, while there are many problem statements and each value chain is different, so many solutions are possible. One of the big problems or challenges, which is interesting to, for any startup guy to realize, is that how do you turn these point solutions to a successful business, right? Being able to develop a solution which is robust and works at scale across crops and across agroclimatic zones is not easy. And then being able to scale it across the country and also then be able to convert it into a revenue model which is sustainable is tough, right? So often that requires support of an ecosystem as well. So a successful solution which is solving a real problem is great. But for it to become a viable business also needs an ecosystem, right? And some of these ecosystems that are there today are what are necessary for a startup in this space to work. As a part of ITC Mars, also we do some of it. We work, as I mentioned, with a bunch of startups, so happy to engage with any We have a big presence both physically and digitally to happy to engage and mentor and support any startup. The program that we have is what we call plug and scale. And the idea essentially is that how do you help a startup refine the solution, work out and experiment the business model and then scale. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rahul Gouraha, for your deep insights on agri and food sector. Please give a huge round of applause to Mr. Rahul Gouraha. Thank you.